It's official.
Add another switch, Matt.
You're live, sir.
Hello, everybody. Today is January 20th. It is 7 o'clock. This is the facilities meeting. I'm Michael Roosevelt, and we'll take attendance moving to my right.
Bob Vicky, School Board.
Yota Piley, School Board.
Pauline Borgia, Facilities.
Ed Tate, School Board.
Doug Taylor, Director of Operations.
Sue Elliott, Substitute Superintendent.
Joe Hidalgo, School Board.
Mary Ann McKee, School Board.
Matt Butters, IT Director.
Ed Salomon, School Board.
Mike Norwood, School Board.
So we have several things on the agenda for discussion. I'm just going to go down them really quick. Custodial Services Agreement with ABM. We've got Policy Review and Synthetic Turf License Agreement. Energy Management Update. Facilities Improvement Projects Update. Capital Improvements Project Update. And other board agenda items, upcoming meetings. And then finally, we'll end with public comment. I think that we're going to facilitate this the much we do everything else. Looks like we've got a couple members here that may or may not want public comment. Oh. All right, no public comment. Wonderful. Good. All right, thanks very much. Let's start with at the top, Custodial Services Agreement, ABM hourly rate increase. It's all yours, Don.
Thank you. So you went through the agenda, and we are going to start with ABM. We do have, as you mentioned, Bernie, who is the general manager who helps oversee the custodial services here at the district, and Charlie, his right-hand man, who works closely with him and does the same. I'm going to let them speak to these slides. I have a couple slides following one or two here just to give you some feedback. And I did share with the board information leading back to prior to the new board members so that you had the history of the issue. So hopefully that helped you understand it. And Ed, thank you for that suggestion. It was a really good idea. So hopefully everybody's up to speed on where we are. And I'm not sure who wants to speak to it, but hi, I'm Bernie. Let me, I have to start off. I lost my hearing about a month ago. I've just got my hearing aids today, so they're still a little tingy. So if I ask you to repeat yourselves, please don't mind. If it gets too hard, Charlie's going to have to take over. Okay? We've been here about a year and a half. We started our contract pre-COVID, kind of. When we started the contract, the average wage rate here in Newtown was about $12 an hour, and which was good. We maintained most of our marks. People, weeded out the bad people, retrained. So far, we've been very successful. Since COVID really took over, the average wage rate in the area is about $15 an hour. We have some local stores, paying $18 an hour. And we honestly just can't compete. We're getting people that have been here 14, 15 years leaving to take other jobs and make more money. Not only that, the fact that gas prices have gone up and most of our people are from Philly. So they're spending about a third of their paychecks on gas. So it's easier for them to stay in Philly, make $17, $18 an hour than it is to drive 45 minutes to an hour to make $12 an hour. What we're proposing, thank you. We want to bring everybody up to an average wage rate of $15 an hour. What that breaks down to basically is I'm going to pay my nightly $16 an hour because they have that added responsibility of checking up the building, making sure everything is clean, locking up, and then everybody else besides the nightly $15. That comes out to about $36,000. Comes out to $36,929 extra a month on top of what we're paying now. Prorated, it's at 2.95 this year from, as you can see, from February 1st, if it gets approved, to June 30th. And then next year, it'll increase $443,000 for the entire year of next year. Monthly cost increase will stay the same at $36,900. it's something that Doug and I talked about extensively. If we didn't need it, we wouldn't be asking. There's no profit in this, that's our cost to bring everybody up to an average wage rate of $15.
So, and if you want to ask questions, you want me to finish a couple slides that I put together.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, okay. So for the sake of discussion, it raises the question of, well, we're going to pay this much more money. What are other districts paying? Anyone who's paying services similar to ABM, Aramark, whomever it may be, are faced with the same challenge of looking for increases to those contracts. But the districts that are paying custodians with their own staff are paying, and we did some benchmarking here, Ben Salem, Penridge, Central Bucks, New Hope, Silbury, Morrisville, Palisades, and you can see, you know, the ranges, their hourly rates are 16, 17, 21, 27. The average is about $19.65 an hour, an estimated salary of about $41,000 a year, $26,000 in benefits, so they're getting paid around $67,000 to work directly for the district. And I wanted to do this homework because I wanted to know, the more that our vendors start asking for money and the number continues to climb, you start to ask yourself, well, when does it make sense for us to just take this service on ourselves and hire our own people and do it, you know, do the work? So if you look at the ABM agreement for next year, if you were to pay for a year-to-year comparison, if you were to take next year's plus the $443,000 burning pension at $3.2 million, and you look at what we would need to do to staff our buildings appropriately based on 30,000 square feet of custodian, slightly more square foot in the larger schools, at those rates that we established from benchmarking, we're looking at around $5.8 million when you estimate $500,000 roughly for paper goods, soaps, and all those things that you need on top of the people, which is a delta of about 2.5, almost 2.6 million, based on this current comparison. So at least gives you some idea, where we stand, what that delta is, if you're asking that same question. Otherwise, I've shared the history of the issue, so I really leave it up to you to ask ABM your questions.
So on this slide, why would it cost so much more for Council Rock to employ these people directly than if we go through ABM?
Well, it's primarily because of the benefits, the 26,000 benefits. We have the Peasers retirement program. We have, the insurance. We have some costs that ABM doesn't have.
So do they currently get any benefits?
ABM is a solicited service, so I don't know what their benefits are with their staff. It's just a competitively bid professional service. So,
do they get any
Let me
benefits?
just see your lips, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, we do offer benefits.
okay.
Yeah, we offer a 401k, dental, vision, but it's all, you have to buy into it. So that's the difference, I'm assuming, between the district and ABM.
yeah, our retirement program is a significant cost, for staff.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Thank you.
Mr. Tate. Go ahead.
Thank you. Is it the first slide where it was showing, was this an average, maybe it was $15, where we were proposing $15. There's no costing price increase, or that's the average? Because I know we were talking about average at some point, but we were talking about local average rates. Does everybody get paid $15 an hour or $12 an hour now?
We're at 12 now. We'd like to bring everybody up to 15, might we go to 16.
Our average pay rate right now is about $13.49 an hour, combined, with the 90 and the regular staff members.
And with your costs that you add to it, do you have an hourly rate that way calculated or something for us to understand?
Our hourly rate?
No, basically, yeah, you have to get something.
Our average hourly rate now is $13.21.
What's your billable rate?
Okay, so that's
Some
12 plus
some
you get
people
the
make
dollars.
$15 an hour
There
now.
are some employees make 14, some other, we have 2 or 3 that are making 15, So average salary.
So we're just trying to raise
Yeah,
everybody
right
up.
now, we're raising the rates now to be able to maintain our staffing levels. Right now, honestly, we're short. You know, the contract calls for 75, we're at 69. And I'm running overtime, like every day.
And even at $15 an hour, we're still at the bottom of the local, so, go ahead.
That's almost like the new minimum wage. It might sound crazy, but I've done my research around the area, you know.
I agree, it's very hard to find somebody at $12 an hour.
Are you good? I think Mr. Tate, and then we're going to go to Mr. Forward.
I think you answered my question about the head count. The impact on the head count is that instead of having 73, you're running around 69.
75. We should have 75 FTEs.
75, the contract calls for 75 plus the 3 managers. With this proposal, we're actually going to drop one. This is proposal for 74 FTEs. We can run the district properly with 74 FTEs. What that will do is we'll get rid of one floater. Right now, we would like to have 2 floaters. They cover the building on its fallouts. We can manage with overtime on 1 floater. So we will actually be dropping it down from 75 to 74. I can't run the district with less than 74.
Mr. Forward?
Let me first, how long was this contract? I don't remember. How long was the contract for?
So we entered into the contract in May of 20, and it's through June of 23.
So it's 4 years.
It's 3 years. We're
3 years.
we're halfway into the contract.
So we're halfway through the contract, and we bid this, and I'm going to speak for the public who pays for this. We bid this as a fixed price contract to control our costs. That's a 16% increase. That's giant. I mean, to the people who are, I'm having trouble with, do we need to cancel the contract and rebid them? I mean, I'm struggling with fixed price contracts that come back and say, well, they're really not fixed price contracts. I'm sorry, I'm really wrestling with it. You know, we had other bidders in May of 20, that you know, some of them were less, some of them were more. It's a 16% increase halfway through a 3-year contract. I don't know how to say that other than I don't know how I look my community in the eye and say, we did this and look, we can't. So.
This is unprecedented. With COVID, the job market is turned upside down. We're doing everything that we can to try to attract people. With our current rate, we're giving $200 sign-on bonuses to the people that stay longer than 30 days, and to the person that recommends them. Right now, we do things to try to make, we give $25 gift cards to the employee of the month, school of the month. We're trying different things to try to motivate people. Constantly buying them food and things like that. It just doesn't work. What it comes down to is they want to pay their bills. They can get a job closer to their house for $17 an hour.
And there's, Mike, to your concern, there's no obligation for us to pay ABM any more money.
Yeah,
And I brought it to the board because I recognize where the economy is, and there is some, there's honestly some issues out there with salaries and keeping people, in their positions. And, the other part of it is if we don't have enough custodians in our buildings, we're not going to get the level of cleanliness that we need at a time when having a clean building is most important.
And that's the other half of this. We build a contract around APA level 2. I mean, are we achieving that? That's a contracted delivery here. I mean, are we achieving it?
Yeah. So let me say this, because I would like to say, ABM coming here in place of who we had before has made a big difference. We have gotten a lot of good feedback from ABM's presence in our schools. What we had before was not working. It hadn't worked for years. We kept trying to make it work. We increased the FTEs with them. a bit, recognizing we needed more. We changed it at the level 2. They came on board, and in the first year is really, I've never been through hiring a custodial team. So they came through in the first year just acclimating. You know, they interviewed all the staff, they kept the people that they felt should be kept. They got rid of some people that just weren't doing the job. They hired new people. They brought in all their equipment. Every school has, stations, for soap and for all the chemicals that they need, their green chemicals, but all their stuff that they use. They brought in a large mixing device for the disinfectant. So, and then it was just learning the buildings, and the first year, they're coming in May, and they have that summer to get buildings ready for next year as a new vendor in our district. And they did a really nice job coming in and getting things ready for the next year. And that year was certainly challenged. This is their first year with buildings fully occupied, with outside users here in the evenings, on weekends, and they're managing it very well. We're really pleased with their performance. And I think that they are mostly keeping up, even though they don't have the number of FTEs they should. But what I'm hearing from Bernie and Charlie is that the people are just getting burnt out because they're trying to keep 75 FTEs with 68 or 69 people. So they're just having people work double shifts overtime, and I guess people just get tired after a while. So I'm just bringing it to everyone for consideration. And to your other point, if you want to consider it for the rest of this year, and you want to say, put it back out and see competitively where other people would be for the third year, and extend it to 3 years from that point. Instead of a 3-year contract, it's 2, and then hopefully ABM is competitive, and we don't have to, this is a service that you just can't survive every couple of years switching out.
I want to make sure everybody around the table gets an opportunity.
I'm good, yeah, I'm good, yeah.
Mr. Hidalgo, you
Oh,
indicated.
okay, yeah, thank you. Doug, that second idea, the last idea is not a bad idea if we are going to move forward to possibly, in my opinion, do it for the rest of the remainder of this year and then bring the whole thing back out to bid. That would cost $184,000 for the next 6 or 7 months.
That would be the 184.
So the only thing I'm trying to add up is the difference in the total contract, but that's okay, from like 2.7 to what we are at now, 2.9, so maybe it's, I'm going to have to do the math on that, but my question would be, going up to $15 an hour, just refresh my memory on how you guys are paid by a percentage of that, how much of the money, total 3.2, or should I say annually, monthly, however you want to break it up, goes to the workers, and then the rest goes to the administration of the company? There's got to be a profit.
This is how much it costs for us. There are all the costs because, startup costs are extended over the life of the contract. So there are, of course, they're in there. But as far as profit, there's no profit. No profit in here at all. And I'll tell you on a personal level, last year I lost $61,000 last year at this account. We made no money.
Right.
This year I'm on track to lose $80,000.
Sure.
It's just, we're doing what we have to do, running a lot of overtime, because we want to fulfill our contract. Honestly, on a personal note, I graduated from Council Rock in 1990. I'm very, I like this, this is near and dear to my heart, and I take this very personally.
Yeah, I would just say if you lost $61,000 last year, I mean, that gives you some courage to come up here and ask for this increase.
I apologize. I thought this was off.
No, that's okay. So I understand it's hard to hire anybody for $12 an hour. I know it very much. It's a hard thing to come in here and just kind of make a nod ahead. So I don't know what other finances people need to see, but I might need a clear understanding now.
We haven't heard from Mr. Hickey and Mr. Solomon, and it looks like you've got something to add. Okay.
So we did that for the subs, right? The teachers. We recognize that this is a special environment that we are currently in, and we agreed to pay them more so we attract them. I mean, I cannot imagine. So if we don't hire more people, what's going to happen? It's not going to be clean, right? And especially in a school, you want to clean it. I mean, independent of COVID, there's bugs, there's germs. Even if it's flu season, it has to be clean. So I cannot imagine, uh, say, walking the Soul Finestone and having like a dirty building. How are we going to face the parents and the teachers? I mean, we have to do something to accommodate for the special circumstances. And then if you want to rebid for next year, that's always an option.
Mr. Hickey, Mr. Salmon, anything to add?
Yeah, I have a hard time, like you said, it's easy to say, oh, well, we just gave the substitute teachers more money. Like every time we turn around, every meeting I've been in, everything just keeps going up and up and up. Like at what point, like how do they pay for it? Like I said, we just offered the substitute teachers more money. You know, we just gave, the teachers a new contract. Just different things that come up. Everything that I keep on seeing is it's going to cost X plus. You know, and how do you say X plus and just figure that into the budget every year? I mean, for sure, if we did anything, I would say it would be short term and put it all back out to bid, or try to think outside the box some way where, I don't even know, I don't have that idea, but where we could get away with keeping this price the same, and I'm not saying using other people, but, just a different way to keep these costs down. I mean, as opposed, it may not sound like much, but when you add it on top of everything else, then it goes into the millions of dollars as opposed to the tens and hundreds of thousands.
And, I honestly feel like I know if it goes back out to bid, numbers are going to stay the same. Every other custodial company has to pay a minimum of $15 an hour. So you try somebody new for the same amount of money, or do you keep the person that has a proven track record for the past year and a half? I have over 20 years experience in the custodial industry. I own my own business in Newtown, my own cleaning business here in town. I know people with Aramark. I know a lot of people. I used to work for Aramark at U10. They're all going through the same thing. This is a painful conversation that we have to have with all of our school districts. The school district of Philadelphia, we had to have the conversation with. Coatesville, we had that conversation with. Lancaster just gave us a $2 an hour increase. It's unfortunately with COVID, it's the nature of the beast. It's not something that we want to do. I don't foresee us coming back in a couple of years asking for another $400,000 because quite honestly, $15, $16 an hour, we can get a good labor pool, consistent labor pool, and that's what we're running into now is people will take our job and take a job here, work 2 or 3 days, and then leave because the other job that they applied for just called them back and they're making more money. So now we're getting a lot more turnover. Turnover here for the first year, we really didn't have any except for the people that we got rid of. Everything is going up, and it's something that we can't control and something that we pursue.
Mrs. McKee.
Yeah, thank you. I know none of us like to see the price of everything is going up all around us. Everybody's experiencing it, but to me, that is the reality. We're seeing it everywhere. That is the reality. And this, to me, is a priority. It's tough to take, as you say, Dr. Thorwart, when we have a price in mind and we assume that this is our anticipated cost. But keeping our schools clean, keeping it a healthy environment for staff and students, that is just such a priority. And if this is the reality we have, it seems to me it's dependent upon us to meet that reality and agree to do this.
I have a few questions also. We did approve temporary increases to substitute teachers, and we found it in savings. So the first question is to Mr. Taylor. Did we run any of this through Jason Harris with finance to understand what we can afford? Because the reality that some of the members have expressed is our revenues aren't increasing, but our expenses are. And we're getting close to a spot of a musical chairs where somebody doesn't get a seat. So I think that's what's going on. Can you find somewhere where we can experience savings or someplace where we can cut?
Well,
talked to Jason briefly about this, and he felt initially that, you know, the COVID contingency was the reasonable fund for an issue like this. So he does feel that's a relevant fund for this issue.
The second question is to you gentlemen from ABM. What assurance do we have as on a contract that this won't go up again? If we're going to go up to 15 and we looked at neighboring districts that are higher than that, what assurance do we have that you're not going to come back next year and express the same?
You're right.
Is 15 enough?
I can talk to my, and now it's something, again, that's above my pay grade, but, you know, I can talk to my, if that's something that you guys insist, and I'll talk to Chad or VP, and we could put language in there that, you know, we won't go above X amount of, you know, that wage rate.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if it could be done, but if we did something like that, if we agreed to this, would we be able to extend it into a year 4 at the same rate?
So, yeah.
If they,
Like right now, you're running through June 30th, or, you know, June of 23. If we were agreeable to this, would you be agreeable to going an extra year at the same new rate? So 2 years from now, it would still be the same as opposed to revisiting this.
We'll still be at the $15, $16 rate. Now, going forward, build into our contract, there are other fees. That doesn't, I don't think that includes the other fees. This is just for our $15, $16 an hour rate.
it's per hour report.
And we do have, you know, we do have a profit built into the contract. These costs have nothing to do with the profit. There's no profit built into these costs.
But I guess the question is, if you went back to Chad, and we said, we're willing to give the 184, and this is just to clarify a question, the 184 for the prorated this year, the 443 for a contract of 3.2 the third year, will you come back and say, we'll bring you year 4 at 3.2 again? Extend the contract a year at that 3.2. I know it's a question for Chad.
That's a question for Chad.
So,
Well, yeah, I mean, if we've got things like that on the table, it makes it difficult, perhaps, for us to move things. When can we get these answers?
I can have them to go by tomorrow.
Okay, that helps. Mr. Hidalgo?
Yeah, so when I asked if there was a profit in the contract, I meant the whole thing, not just those numbers. So the profit, and you lost $61,000 on this portion of the labor.
Yes, there's no profit on this board.
Right, but I had asked if there was a profit built in, because if
There is
you come
profit
back,
built in.
because we agreed on something with a built-in profit, if you're gonna ask for labor increased costs, then maybe that profit should be looked at also as a bargaining, you know, just to say that should maybe be affected, us, we share some of it. Because you didn't lose last year, your company didn't lose money on this account, but you told me it did.
Say again?
Did you lose money on this account last year as a total, not just the labor?
We lost, we had the net loss of a little over $61,000.
Including the built-in profit to the contract?
We had net loss.
No, I'm saying there's a profit built into the contract.
There was a profit, there's a percentage built into the contract for a profit.
And you went negative last year in this account as a whole contract?
I went over my budget, $62,000. We made no money on this account.
As a company?
Say again?
As a company?
Company wide, your company makes money.
That's what I'm trying to ask you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, your company made money, but for this account, your company lost for Council
We lost
Rock?
money from this account.
Okay.
So the only,
And I'm on track.
And I'm wondering why.
the only other thing, and it plays on what Mr. Roosevelt mentioned, is I would want some assurance, and I would want it in the agreement that our solicitor would prepare, that if we pay you the 15 an hour and 16 per night, or the leave, that we are going to get the 75 FTE. Because if we pay you the money, but the FTE stay at 69, then...
Well, I can jump in on this. I do most of the recruiting for this account. And I get daily people calling me for jobs. When I tell them the pay rate, they never call me back.
I understand.
And on that, I mean, the last hires I've done, I pay them over the amount that we're supposed to pay just because we need them. You know, I'm paying more in overtime than paying them $14 to join me than paying another employee 17 or $20 an hour overtime.
Right, I would just want to build into that, if there's an amendment to the agreement, that you will indeed meet the 75 or 74, and if you don't, then the payment has to be adjusted. Because I don't want to pay, if the board agrees to pay more money, but we're paying more money for the same results, that would make no sense.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, in my personal opinion, I don't see us having lower staff with the pay rate that we need to just fill the spots. And we can always do, if you like, we do it in another account, we can do a certified payroll or something, so you can just have a count and see how much is going out and stuff like that.
Our average rate when we started this account, as per the contract, was $12, a little over $12 an hour. That was built into the contract. You know, our average wage right now is $13.21 because we're paying some people 15, some people 14, some people 12. It really depends on our need at that time and what kind of worker they are. But we're, you know, and this, not to mention, you know, everything else as well. I mean, you guys are in private business yourself, you know, for other companies. You know, everything is doubled with, you know, our disinfectant went from, well, like to us. When we started it off, it was $50 a case. It's up to $120 a case now. And now with COVID and, you know, any positive cases that we get, my cleaners get paranoid. They're blowing through gloves left and right, blowing through paper towels left and right, blowing through chemicals left and right. So it's COVID really turned the cleaning industry upside down.
How much extra were you guys investing or providing in terms of cleaning for COVID since this started?
How much extra what?
How much extra service were you providing for COVID cleaning since this
Right now, I believe the original contract, I believe it calls for disinfecting 2 or 3 times a week. It's daily. So we're disinfecting every night now still, because of the variant coming, you know, that's here, and the other variant that's going to come whenever it comes. So right now we are doing extra detail cleaning. I didn't want to change too much from last year. You know, last year we didn't have a lot of cases, and I think we did a good job. And we're doing the same this year. We're going above and beyond the contract already, as far as that goes.
So this 15 that accounts for that will get you guys a profit.
This 15 right now, the $15 an hour will get us a good, steady workforce. We've had people that have been here 15, 16 years that aren't here anymore. And we need that. We need that consistency in the schools. Because every school has different nuances. Every school has, you know, every school's its own little island. So when we have somebody that's been there 15 years, and they just gel with the principal and the mechanic and everything else like that, it just runs smooth. They go above and beyond what they need to do, cleaning wise in your room without even asking. If we have a constant turnover of staff, it's constant training, there'll be a lot more inconsistency, and it will be more headache for the district and more headache for us.
We don't make no profit on that $15 an hour.
No.
No. Because right now, we're paying the new hires that we're getting in at a higher rate than what we're supposed to. So we're actually taking a loss. Every time, I hired 3 people last week at $14 an hour. And that is a loss. But we need it.
Mr. Solomon?
So I was in the private security sector for numerous years, and I went through this dog trying to catch its tail. No one can sit up there and tell me that $15 is going to solve the ills of your situation. It's not. It's a stopgap. People have to drive to Newtown. They're coming from Philadelphia. That's brakes, that's gas, that's maintenance on the car, $15 an hour. It may be great for the first couple of months. I guarantee you, and you can't sit there and tell me you can guarantee it's going to work. It's not going to work. we're gonna be here 6 months from now, we're gonna hear the same thing. But that's the problem. That's the world we live in. The last year, until COVID, you could sit home and make more money than you did going to work. This is the problem that we're having. I don't think anything we put in front of you is going to be a long-term solution, whether it's $15 or $18 or $20 an hour. This sector is just going to bleed and continue to bleed. So whatever the board wraps their arms around as a dollar amount, I'm going to tell you within a year, we're going to be back here asking for the same thing. Because May of 2020, when they did an analysis of the area, the average custodian made $11.59. So now you're asking for $15. That's a $4 swing in less than 2 years. I guarantee you, you will be back here and you'll see 15's not enough. So I would challenge you guys to find out what a number really works that gives somebody a decent living in your mind to get them to work every day. Because 15 is not going to cut it in 6 months. Not with inflation at 7.5 right now. So
we're finding with the current staff that we have now, $15 an hour would keep 95% of the people coming to work.
Well, then I would argue that I would want any increase for a very short period of time. I wanted a full evaluation done of what you've done in that period of time. Come back to the board and see where that lands, and then we can talk about whether we need to outbid it again. Because I totally disagree with you. I think you're trying to catch the tail, and you're the dog. But prove me wrong. But we're not Daddy Warbucks. You know, every $36,000 might not seem like a lot, and I wish Mr. Harris was here to cue in, to your point, Mr. Roosevelt, some of the questions we have, because every nickel and dime, Mr. Hickey, becomes dollars and dollars and dollars. And this organization runs on a very lean ship to begin with, let alone adding $1 here, $1 there, they add up. And yes, our schools need to be clean. We fought for, and we wanted at the Apple level that it is now. Are you still doing quality checks, the 25-point quality checks? Okay, because there's a document here that, 25, the additional benefit is ABM as a partner, area support with over 2,500 ABM service workers with VA. So every account can't be a loss. So there's accounts out there making, there's accounts making. And my company that I came from doing security, my account was a complete loss too. You can't recruit at that dollar amount. And I would argue $15, $18, $20 an hour, it may last for a little bit, it's not gonna last forever. So if you want to do something short term, Mr. Hidalgo, and what I keep hearing from the board, that may work, but I don't think there's a magic bullet to this. This is going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And depending on what other people do that's outside of our purview and offer people money to stay home and make more money, that will deflate this whole process again. So I wish you guys luck. I want to support this because our kids deserve and our families deserve clean schools. I just think, Doug, we need to figure out something that fits the Band-Aid, if you will, but addresses the long term of how we do cleaning in our schools that can sustain not having these conversations year after year. We're only a couple years into this contract. And COVID's going to be it for the next couple of years. We'll blame COVID. But, we can't Band-Aid and leak out water constantly. Right. It's not going to work. So I'd like to hear more conversation.
Yes, if I may, and I wish Jason was here too, Jason can't keep spending money out of the slush fund that is the COVID money. That's going to run out. That's not a long-term solution. This has to be budgeted. It should never be. The slush fund, this is not one-time money. It shouldn't come out of a bucket of savings. It shouldn't ever. This is going forward forever. So he's not here, so I'll stop. But I take a little umbrage with keep scooping out of that bucket because it's still full. Because that bucket isn't going to be full forever.
And this contract.
But this contract will be forever. Yes. So this has to be budgeted. So find the savings. I mean, that's the.
Well, I think Doug asked Mr. Harris where he would find funds to do this on a temporary basis. Mr. Harris said it would be legitimate to draw from the COVID fund, which we have and which we need to spend for reasonable expenses. So I think it sounded to me like a reasonable answer by Mr. Harris. I'm hearing conversations that there is support for doing this on a limited temporary basis. I like the idea of having a discussion about maybe in exchange extending it for a fourth year, but we don't have that answer now. And so I'm wondering if there isn't a sufficient number of board members right now who would support agreeing to this increase for the balance of this fiscal year with the idea that we're going to have to revisit it come probably May in order to make a decision on the next fiscal year. And we can ask the good folks from ABM to come back to the Facilities Committee in May and report on how staffing has gone with the increased hourly rate.
Yeah, I want a real analysis though, Ed. I want an analysis why, where we are, how we need to get to the next place.
Absolutely.
And not, nothing against these two gentlemen. And they provided a document when the contract was done that shows you the cost of what a custodian is in the area. That's the type of thing I want to say.
Good. I think.
So that would be my priority.
I'm wondering if there isn't board support for doing this to the end of this fiscal year, the June 30th, and, you know, revisiting this in May in time to make a decision.
If I may,
Yeah.
what you're suggesting is giving these folks a 25% pay increase till June, and then they might get a 25% pay decrease. Or retract, and we have to keep spending it. So once you let that genie out of the bottle, and then going back in. I just want to be able to say I told you so.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't think I told you so as part of the equation.
Yeah,
I
but
think
if
if
you
you
need a
have, all right,
long-term
you have an
solution.
alternative solution.
We need a long-term solution.
Do you have an alternative?
Yeah, rebid,
When?
now.
No?
So, that's where I'm at, so.
Anybody else,
Can I say-
comments?
So I think to be in business means you have to make money. So otherwise, and if, I know we're like a public school, but these people, in order to be able to survive, they have to make a profit. They lost $61,000. Why would they want to come back and work for us? So, I mean, either you have to find a solution and hire the people, or you just walk away because this account is not profitable for you. So from our perspective, right now, to know that we are short-staffed in cleaning in our schools, it's not a good answer. So I would say, make sure we do whatever we can until the end of the school year, so that the schools are clean and these people can hire the whatever custodians they need. And then we get bids. And I agree, they're not going to be able to sustain the $15 per hour. It's not going to happen. So even if they promise now that they
But
will,
we're in a contract, so that's what, we have another year on this contract.
can't they just walk away from the contract if
We
they
could
keep
walk
losing
away
money?
from it,
We could, right?
Right.
Yeah, so if we can rebid and then see, what is available out there and who is, maybe they have different solutions of working out their stuff and making money. I don't know. But I don't want to compromise on the cleanliness of the schools right now until the end of the school year. And it is extraordinary circumstance. I mean, I was listening to an interview coming here about the farms and the farmers, everything is going up. The whole supply chain, the prices are going up. So somebody has to take a hit, right, at the end of the day. And
It's the taxpayers.
somebody will have to take a hit. I mean, hopefully, in this case, not the farmers, but someone's going to have to take a hit. So I agree that it's not sustainable. So maybe we agree with them to have a contract negotiation or people to bid again. But until then, I think we need to give them a $15 and make sure our schools are clean. That's my
Is
take.
that two for a temporary increase, it sounds like? Okay. Mr. Hickey, Mrs. McKee?
No, I agree with that, and I recall when we put this out to bid before, we weren't happy with the services we received from Aramark, as I recall. That was really problematic. And we put it out to bid, and we had presentations, and I do recall, as this contract started, we were pleased with the performance. We were pleased with the work that was being done. So to your point, Dr. Thorwart, I don't know if we put it out to bid again, that we're going to get someone who is really that much less than what we're seeing here. You know, if $15 is the going rate, how is someone else going to come in and do it for us for less? But I do accept what you're saying. It's very hard to turn back the clock. If $15 is the going rate, we don't go back from that. So a permanent solution, yes, definitely. As we look at our budgeting procedure, that needs to be in place. But I am concerned about right now, putting in place right now what we need to get through this school year to keep the buildings done properly and to make sure we have the staff to do it. So I would be in favor of doing this as a temporary measure, and then as Mr. Tate suggested, revisiting it with more data going forward, perhaps some, some amendments to the contract or an extension of the contract, and look at it in more depth. But for the time being, I would be willing to agree to the increase.
What's your average call outs a day? Your average call outs a day, district-wide?
That's a good question. Today, I was surprised because we didn't get a call out in the morning. And I'm up around 4 o'clock because I can't sleep, just looking at my phone waiting for a call out. We have only the spots that are vacant today. We have no call outs today. But on a regular, last week, I can give you a good example. Tuesday, we had 10 call outs, plus the people that were missing on the spots.
One day we had 8 call-outs, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. I mean, it really depends on.
And you're not at a full staff to begin with?
Yeah.
You're not at a full staff to begin with?
We covered all with overtime. There's time for work cleaning.
And then the other issue that, it's a separate thing, but just so you make you aware, we pay so much overtime to the people that are usually our go-to during the week, that when we have events on the weekends that Pauline and I manage, we don't find people to work on weekends because they do a lot of overtime in the week.
Yeah,
And that's another problem with it.
Our average the average hours the past couple of weekends, has been over 150 hours to cover the events. And for us, that's all overtime.
Paulie, what do we make with running our facilities for the year?
What do we,
So what do we take in for running our facilities? You know?
I don't. I can tell you right now that the gyms are extraordinarily busy. I have at least 8 or 9. You see the weekend schedule. It's pretty heavy, and it will be till the end of March.
And we've raised prices on expected.
No, we haven't raised prices. We are here today to discuss that, and hopefully that will go through effective July 1. So we're poised to do that.
How much are we raising them? Percentage-wise? Like, for example, we're going from 150 to 160 bucks.
There's a spreadsheet, but not the control.
Yeah, it depends on elementary, middle, high school, the field type, the gym size, so. But we have increased all of those, most of those costs, effective July 1, because we do have to let outside users have time to make all of their folks aware that the numbers are going to go up starting in July 1.
And that just goes in the general fund, correct? All that?
I honestly can't speak to where this money's going.
I'm just trying to be loud and creative with where to find some money.
Yeah, well,
Because, that's how I do life.
yeah, if our expenses are increasing at this rate, and
Absolutely,
it's a part of the
And why do
facility
you like
use,
that? Why don't we do
then
this?
we need to put it there.
Yeah.
We also need to be careful with how much we're dipping into in this COVID fund for other things. To Dr. Thorwart's point, that does run out sooner or later. So it sounds like we have some people for temporary. Anybody? We've got some against temporary.
Go. 23, that's our official last year of our contract, right? We have a 3-year contract with a 2-year extension, correct?
It's the end. Well, I don't know that we had what the language is, possible extension. It's the end of the 3-year.
Yeah, so that 3-2 is technically, that will last to the end of our official contract.
Say that again?
That 3-2 number will, our contract unless you guys extend, ends the 2023.
Right.
Right.
So that 3-2 will last till the end of our contract. Then, if you guys decide to, extend, then it's another negotiation thing between you and you guys and the higher ups.
Yeah.
But right now, we're asking for that till the end of our contract.
Right, and it sounds like some here are in favor of giving you what you're asking for, but not till the end of your contract, perhaps till the end of the school year. Because this was agreed in May of 20. It's not really the beginning of COVID. You're kind of smack dab in the middle of everything going on. So, to other point here, what confidence do we have that it's not going to come back again, that we're going to chase our tail? And the point of the contract is to have an agreement that lasts the life cycle of the contract. So we don't want to come back here again, I think it's.
And we don't want to come back.
I believe, and I'm to interrupt, I believe that if we put it on the language, on the contract, or the limit on the contract on this, we shouldn't be coming back every year or every 6 months or anything like that. And just my experience in ABM, I've been with ABM 8 years, and I've been all over New Jersey and Pennsylvania. When we do extension of the contract, the prices really don't change. If we have a good relationship with the customer, it usually stays pretty
I
similar.
think the annual increase, regular annual increase is 1% or something like that.
It wasn't very, I don't have it as a percentage, but.
Last year, I believe, right now you're paying $231. I think last year was $228.
Exactly. So I think if we don't have any more discussion, we do have some more items. I'd like to just go around the room to see if we have 5 to put a temporary increase on the agenda, and then we can see if we've got 5 to put the full increase on the agenda for what these guys are asking for.
What do you mean the full increase?
For all 3 years. All right, for the remainder of the contract.
Year and a half, yeah.
Yep, Mr. Hidalgo?
So conceptually, the short-term option seems reasonable. I can't commit to anything until I crunch these numbers a little bit more and understand more comfortable. Don't have that feeling right here. The idea is give you more money, understand from a layman's standpoint, it's hard at $12 an hour, but we have contracts, and I want to just fully understand the numbers when I start crunching them out for the rest, comparing what we are at and where we're going to. And with 74 FTE, is that's all you have, 74? Is that the goal? 74 full-time equivalent?
74.
You're right, but you're averaging 69 right now?
Currently, we have 69.
So we're going to spend $500,000 to get 5 more people next year.
Well, and to maintain
retain
what we
everyone.
have.
Right, and retain. No, I got you, but I'm saying I have to run some numbers and think about it. I can't commit, but the short term is something is closer to what's agreeable than not.
All right.
Not willing to go for the full contract, just.
All right, so we've got 1 for a temporary.
I'm not really temporary until I run the numbers.
Oh, okay, so all right. Do we, and that's a really sticky point too. I mean, we've got to figure out where this is coming from. We got to figure out if we can afford it. I think everybody in this room wants to have clean schools for our kids, and I think everybody in this room wants to have you guys where you can perform that. The concern is we've got a contract that was signed, and we've got limited funds also. So we probably need a little bit more analysis. We have a solicitor analysis. We need a financial analysis as well. But conceptually speaking, is there anybody that's good for a short term?
I'm good for a short term.
Mr. Tate, that's 2.
Yes.
Ms. McKee is 3.
I just want to, Doug, were you looking to put this on the February agenda?
It's retroactive to, from the February date. So, I mean, if it goes another, would prefer to, so that they have time to actually try to retain some employees and bring people in. If it goes another month, I can't say if they'll lose more or gain more. It's really up to you. If you want me to include it on the February agenda, I will. If you're not ready for that, then I won't.
Yeah, I think we need some more parameters to actually have a full-time vote, but I'm just thinking advancing something out of committee where we're
I
at.
would have more parameters for the actual board
Yeah,
packet, for sure.
so maybe we're not ready to let this out.
I'm not okay for the long term, but for the short term, I think definitely for the long term, we need better analysis and financial input from,
Right.
both from them and like, internally.
Right.
But for the short term, I mean, I cannot see any good solution, so I would definitely go for the short term. It means we are in the middle of another Omicron pandemic, and it's very important to have the schools really clean. I don't want to hear from parents that we're not doing a good job cleaning the schools. I mean, enough with hearing from that we're not, the kids are not taught because the teachers are out. At least, you know, the basic thing is to keep the schools clean in the short term.
I think I would like to push it off a month because we need some answers. You know, like you said, I'm not real happy with signing a contract and then halfway in saying, oh, well, our situation changed. That happens for everybody. I mean, you sign a contract, you know, it should be binding. I understand your position about the rates. I agree with it. I work at a place where we're trying to get help too, and we can't get it because we're not paying enough. That being said, you know, we're biting a bullet right now. I mean, much as you are, but I'm going to say for another month, we'll have more answers. You'll find out what kind of retention you have, you know, waiting another month. Maybe you'll come back and say, you know, everything's stayed the same as it did this month. But in the meantime, we can maybe try to find some answers and maybe some alternatives as to what you're proposing. And I don't think another month's going to make a difference one way or the other. I don't think all of a sudden our schools are going to be dirty unless you told your employees that something was going to happen in February and now it's not.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, you do a good job. I think I was actually here at the meeting 3 years ago when I think it was 3 vendors came in with their proposals and, you know, we decided to go with you and apparently you're doing a very good job with it. But I would like to push it off for another month.
So I clarified with Mr. Harris, the increase this year, the 184, that would be from the COVID contingency, and then the next year increase we would build into the budget for next year. So just to clarify, because I think maybe there were questions around how are we going to pay for this. So the 22-23 amount would be built into our budget work for next year.
So can I ask you, the 184, if it comes from the COVID fund, if we don't use the money for that, so the money is available, what happens to this? Is it money we have to return back to the government?
So that's in our fund balance, so
Okay.
no,
No.
we don't return it back to the government. But that's not like the ESSER funds or some of those other things where we buy money. No.
But it's already in the budget, so we can use it.
That's part of the money that, that the board obligated the fund balance into specific categories. And so we have some there for COVID contingency needs that come up just in case there's things that are unexpected.
And I'll add, it was because it was the most flexible budget
Yes.
bucket to
Yes.
move money around. And we labeled it COVID because we could do that. And without COVID in the conversation, it would be just a bucket. So it's not the ESSER funds or anything that needs to be spent. It's just available funding for us for things that may pop up maybe like this. That's all.
Mr.
Yeah,
Hidalgo.
we spend an hour on this.
Yeah,
I
we got
appreciate
a
you
lot.
guys standing here for the whole time. I would like to honor Doug's concerns, and I think we should put it on the agenda. We can always table it, but in that meantime, we can have a discussion at the next board meeting and see if we can't push it past because, you know, Doug needs it.
Yeah, we need to move on.
Yep. I think we can add it to the agenda and always table it if we don't have the answers we are asking for.
So what are the directions we give an ABM that if they're going to do that? What do we need from them? What do we need from Doug?
There was, Doug had mentioned something about, you know, guaranteed language. That was important.
Yeah, I have to get an actual amendment prepared with rough copies that would be, something that we would be agreeable to, and your solicitor would have to see it and have an exchange and clarify the fees, and then
We need
make
to-
it an option of either 1 year or for the remainder of this year, or a vote to proceed with next year as well. It gives you the ability to pull it out if you don't want to proceed that way.
Great. I think we need some more information from you guys as well, as we discussed. Thanks very much. It sounds like we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next item, Doug, we've got, go ahead, please.
So, the turf, I've shared with you guys all of the agreements that kind of went back and forth, the final language that went out. So without going through the entire agreement, because most of the agreement was agreed to by both of these groups, and we had an ad hoc committee that was working together on that. So the Crusoe responses under the term was that they would prefer a longer-term agreement, and so did Patriot. They had the same request. So we could put some language in here, and again, this would go back to Rob Cox of the right to first refusal for each of these groups. We're entering into a one-year agreement primarily because we have two fields for the first time. We're not really sure how this is all going to shake out. We think we know. We've had a lot of conversations with Vanessa and with Scott, the ADs, and we think that we have all of the field use that they're going to need, which is first and foremost, which I know was a big concern of yours, Mike, and we certainly agree. So we talked to them about the time that they would need. We extended the amount of time that they use it during the week so they can get double headers in, and then an outside group comes in and uses the facilities. So they just want to, have the ability to continue this relationship if this goes well this year for possibly a 3 or a 5 year agreement next time. So we can certainly talk to Rob about putting a right of first refusal in, pending we all like everyone's behavior. Parking, there was just some concern from Crusoe. We defined where the parking lot is for their events. Obviously, if that became an issue, we can let them know that we're not going to allow them to use the facility if they can't manage the parking. It's really not much of an issue because these events happen after school hours, so we're not competing with anyone else, but we're just trying to define where they park. So not really a big issue. Right to terminate or revoke, both Crusoe and Patriot had a concern for the language. It's fairly harsh. I mean, it basically gives us the right to say at any moment that you're out, and I think that it's language that we have in most contracts. We can talk to Rob about how it feels and how it looks, and if there's any way to soften it a bit to give both parties some ability to notify one another. But I don't think we want to remove it, but I think we, to see, like Crusoe saying, hey, what about 120-day notice, or I don't know if we want 120, but maybe there's something in the middle we can work with. So that would go to Rob Cox. They just wanted the latest version of Policy 707, which we're slated to look at tonight. It's not, they did get a copy of it. I shared it with them. We have some minor comments for tonight to review with you. And they noted at Crusoe that they bring some goals which have to be locked up after use, which isn't uncommon. They've brought equipment here in the past. That's the end of the Crusoe request. Most of the language that we proposed, they accepted. So I would take these back to Rob Cox and see if we can't craft some language that they would be agreeable with. And then just like the other, then that has to go back to Crusoe and back to us. And if it works and we can get it in February, we will. If it doesn't, then we'll put it on the March agenda. And then Patriot, they just had questions. Can we assume the rate of 160, which is the discounted rate for entering into an agreement with us, is for field use with or without lights, and that's correct. That's their rate to use the fields day or night with the lights or without the lights. Then they questioned why the rest of the agreement was 175 when we agreed to the 160, but we agreed to 160 based on 288 base hours in their agreement. For every hour they exceed that 288, the rate then jumps to 175. And we had this issue with Crusoe, and they were, I can't remember the exact number of hours that they were renting our facilities for, but historically, they were going over by 100 and some hours a year. And they're saying, so they're paying the one, whatever it was then, 145, and then we were charging them 160. And they said, hey, can we adjust our hours so that we're not paying this penalty for 150 hours every year, because we have a partnership with you. So we're trying to adjust the hours. So we're establishing a base rate, a base hours, which establishes the overall cost. And 175 would be paid per hour, every hour, out of the 288 for the first year. Then we can adjust and see where we are next year, assuming we're continuing these relationships. And then they asked about, hey, can we get the $160 an hour back if we don't utilize our hours? And I think historically, Pauline, you've adjusted by just providing more time, not money.
Right, which is part of the reason why I wanted to lower the amount of hours that they actually asked for, to give us more of a cushion. Because at the end, I don't want to owe them back money. I want them to always owe us money.
Right. And then the other, they had the same concern for the termination language. You know, can it be softened? It seems a substantial risk. Again, I'll talk to Rob Cox about the termination language. We've always had some language in these, even with Crusoe in the past. So I'll see what it looked like. And they also, Patriot, wanted to know for right of first refusal. And I think we can review that with Rob as well. So really, no major, I don't think major requests or wants. They agreed to the cost, to the hours, to the general terms. So if it's okay, I'll take it to Rob and then we'll move forward with getting it to the board.
Any questions, objections? Mr. Dr. Fuller?
We need an out clause, so if you want to soften whatever we have, that's fine, but we need an out clause.
Yes.
So that would be the only sticking point for me.
I agree, I agree 100%.
Mr. Hidalgo?
4 months out clause, versus what is it now? What is it like?
Well, most of the agreements that I prepare for almost anything is 30 days.
30 days, right. So they're saying 30 days, 4 months. There's still a few things like, okay, so if we're going to lower, could you go back one slide, please, to, it just talks, 2.4 just talks about Patriot FC. So is Crusoe not asking the same thing, or is it just both of them?
There's two different groups and they both ask different questions.
So this is, okay.
It applies to, these terms apply to both of them.
So if we lower they're asking to lower the threshold? See, you were suggesting, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Pauline, thank you. That you were suggesting lowering the 288?
Whatever they had originally asked for, I suggested that we lower it.
Lower to 288.
They asked for more, they asked for like 300 or 350. We took it to 288 so that if we have days where they get bumped by the school because the school needs it and they can't have it, or the event's canceled, and we have to give the time back, we have the ability to add hours over the 288 planned for to use.
Okay.
Plus January and February are so difficult to anticipate. It could snow and they could be not able to use it for a month.
So we're still losing on what they were asking for. We'll lose $15 on an hour by lowering it, but you're saying you don't want to owe. But what was the difference, the 288 versus what was the original they were asking for?
It wasn't that much more.
It was, it's like 300 or...
Yeah, it really wasn't that much
325.
more.
Okay,
Not
okay,
enough
yeah.
to make a difference.
And that base rate hours, is that for like how long of a period of time? Over what period of time is the base hours?
1 year, right?
It's a 1-year agreement.
1 year.
Yep. But the times they can use the field vary depending on the time of year, obviously. You know, in the spring, we start hitting the fields hard with our sports, so they're limited to how often they get on it. Right now, they can use them more heavily because...
Is that already worked out, the schedule?
We've got questions for Mr. Hickey and then
Sure,
Mr. Tate.
sure. One last question.
Yeah, the
So the
schedules
schedule's
are-
already worked out.
Mr. Hickey's next. Go ahead, Bob.
Just a quick, we talk about storing their nets and whatever else they have. Where do they get stored, and what impact does that have on our availability of, you like?
I don't think we really store them. I think we use whatever's on the field.
Okay, because I saw something in the Council Rock one that said we would store there.
Yeah, they said they have, like, if they bring nets for like the peewees or something, or the other groups.
Then they'll put it behind, I guess, behind the track. There's an area that, is mutually
Okay,
agreeable.
storing is in, they're leaving them out somewhere. We're not
They're
storing them.
Away.
No, we're not storing them. They'll pull them off the field, they'll put them along the fence somewhere off to the side, and then they'll put them back when they need them. But no, we're not putting them in the building or in.
Okay, I was gonna say, because if we're, I'd say we
No,
should
we
charge
don't
them a
have
storage
storage
fee.
for ourselves. I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Tate, you're next.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the product of a lot of work by Doug, Pauline, the athletic directors, Mike and Ed and I did at least, I think, a couple conference calls, including one with the athletic directors. So they really put a lot of effort into making these schedules equitable and fair and putting, our students and our coaches' needs first. So I think this is a real great win. And I'll remind everybody that Prusa essentially paid for a new turf field with their fees at North. So these fees will help replace both of those fields in 8-10 years when it's necessary. So I think this is it's a product of a lot of hard work, and I think and in the end, those two clubs are going to be very happy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Any other, Mr. Summers?
So just for the public and anybody that wasn't on the ad hoc committee, we did a one-year contract to kind of let the ADs feel how this new toy at South works, and make sure our people got first, our kids got on first, and then trying to massage in Prusa and Patriot. So I love the idea of a 1 year, clean it up, make them happy, but my hat's off to Pauline. Pauline runs the ship. Everybody who rents from this district knows Pauline. She bends over backwards. I have no problems with anything that's in that contract that she can't handle. So if anybody's got questions, she's the one that handles it. There's no doubt in my mind that Pauline, her and I have become personal friends over the last 5 years fighting over stuff. But the 1 year deal was just so we could massage and make sure everybody gets it. So whatever verbiage you need to put in there to make everybody happy, I like the 1 year deal because I think we want to take a look, and a great idea of cutting their hours down, Pauline, because we don't know. We just don't know when you have two fields. Brand new, great new toy we got. But the key to this was our school kids go first. They pick up thereafter. A year, we'll figure it out, and we'll probably come back to the table. But to add Mr. Tate's point, a lot of work went into this. We want to keep these people happy. We want to keep the fields in use. There's a lot of taxpayer dollars that were used for this. This is an exciting contract because riding bikes, seeing kids out, playing a sport is what this is a real, personal thing for me. So hats off to Pauline and the team that gets this done every day for these kids.
Well, thank you.
Thank
'Cause I was going to credit Pauline. She is.
I just did 5 minutes for it.
We argue every day as well. So.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Any other comments, Ms. McKee?
No.
Ms. Patil? Okay. Yeah, I echo a lot of sentiment here. I like the 1 year deal. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially considering the last item that we just had, that we looked at. Makes a lot of sense. I also want to see kids on that field. I've driven by it a few times, and I see the lights on, and I was excited to see kids out there, and it was empty. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing that occupied as well and having that massaged. I don't want to put a fly in the ointment here, but figuring out what the number that they want per hours, agreeing to that, whatever the base rate is, and then having them agree to the overage hours. If you guys have worked out and everybody's happy with 288, I've got no problem. I think that's fine. I don't want to just see some of the back and forth. Well, we want 350. Well, you can have 280. Right? I mean, you guys have probably been through all that, so I'm good with that as well. I think this is fantastic. From a facilities standpoint, do we have an understanding of if the field is being used or not, and why the lights are probably costing us something? Or is it a security issue?
It's not a security issue so much. I don't know if there was if the AD had a planned use or something, and it didn't happen, but we are starting to ramp up the use at South now. Pauline's getting a lot of requests to use it. I think we're going to have groups there this weekend, planning on Sunday.
It's
perhaps.
great advertising to
I-
have those lights on if it's not getting used, but.
No, it's, people are starting to
Good.
request use at South more so than, than we were originally seeing. So I
Okay.
think it's Patriot and Crusoe.
Well, Cruiser is going, I'm going to put Cruiser over there this weekend. It's during the day. It's 9:30 to 2:30, and then I'll put Patriot over at North.
Okay.
It's a very delicate balancing act right now because it's a brand-new field. And as Dr. Thorwart made very clear, it's extraordinarily important to honor the wishes of our ADs. And their perception is that they need to be out there, they want to be out there, and they want to very slowly incorporate the community groups. I don't know how I can accommodate very slowly and still honor this agreement. So that's really going to be something very, not easy to do. It's going to be very difficult. So I need to understand the sentiment of this board so that, I know how to communicate with the South AD and maybe Al and make your wishes clear so that I can fulfill what you want me to do.
It sounds like the wishes, we want enrolled students in school programs to have first crack at it.
Always.
And then fill it up.
Okay, that's a very important
Right?
sentence.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Anybody disagree?
And as I said to you before, I don't know if it was on the phone or in public, there are people that may not be able to afford this. And if there's a want there and we have an opening, please, let's not leave anybody behind.
Right.
In terms of maybe making public use, or the Indians of Northampton that sent 4 teams to Florida playing championship in football. I don't know what everybody's financials are, so, it may not be a lot for bigger clubs, but it may be a lot for other clubs. So I don't want to see it not being used where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would add, and jump on what Mr. Tate said, Doug, and I've asked, and Dr. Elliott, I've asked Jason, I think we need a line item in the budget for the proceeds or the money we take from these fields, that it becomes a line item in the budget, because in 10 years, when we revisit the need for these, we have some seed money, if not all the seed money we need to start the process of replacing the turf. If the wear factor kicks in earlier or later, at least we know we have money sitting there. We don't have to put out $4 million or whatever the cost of doing business will be at that point.
I asked that question of Cheryl just today. Do we need to have 2 separate accounts, one for North and one for South? Because there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination between these 2 fields.
Well, maybe we make it turfs, but I think we need to see that as a board. The community needs to see it. It's their tax dollars being used, and it gives Doug a sense of where we are. That when he comes back to a board 10, 12 years from now that I won't be on, that the money, and maybe Doug might not even be here, but the money is there. This is what we've been doing every year, and it's locked. It's locked in for the next process. Because if it pays for itself, the conversation's a lot easier to get done than having to go into.
What did Cheryl say about the fund?
She didn't know. She was going to check with Jason.
But there will be one.
So there will be
At
one
least
fund
one.
called turf,
Yeah.
and then they'll figure out how to allocate, because when I send invoices in, it says, it could say north-south, or it could just say all north, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what I have to figure
replacement fund or something.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah, but it should be growing every year times 2 now.
Yeah.
Dr. Forward?
Yeah, 2 comments. One is, you want to know the will of the board. This board member doesn't ever want to hear one of our internal programs couldn't use the turf because we rented it. So and I think that's been.
Have you heard it yet?
Huh?
Since 2010, have you heard it?
No.
There you go.
But
You
yeah,
are.
actually I have. I mean, because we had 2 teams, both teams wanted to use it and couldn't, because we only had 1 turf.
But both school teams, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing is, to this fund, we, and I represent a portion of this community, we turfed the Rocks fundraising. It ended up not being the Rocks, it was the Rock. And so putting this money together, don't separate it, put it together, so that there's never ever a rock again. There's 2 of them now. So I really think one fund prevents that from happening. So I leave them together, that's perfectly fine. So.
Any other comments, or did we provide enough direction for this?
Good. Yep.
All right, so.
Thank you, Doug.
So before we go to this, can you pull up the?
Yeah.
there's the policy that we deferred to tonight, which really shouldn't take long. It's a policy we already reviewed in 19. So our proposed changes are in red, so I think it'll go quick if you just want to slide through and.
Hang on a second, let me make it bigger.
Only you can help me with this one because you were.
Thank you, Matt.
Are they in red or are they crossed out?
Yeah, my eyes appreciate that.
Oh, is this this is the,
707.
oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that
So
tonight. Okay.
red is add, crossed out is
It's okay.
removed.
That's all right, I'll figure it out.
No?
Somebody's got to tell me what that
Is-
is.
Well,
Is crossed out removed and red is add, or?
yeah, that means to remove.
Yes.
Right. That's just a spelling, it should be lease, not leases. And then, under use, I think you wanted this clarified, Pauline, because it was 2 uses in a single weekday without written permission, or more than 3 uses on a single weekend without written permission. There was some confusion about how that was working when we just said 2 uses in a single day. And then you were having challenges with a single day, not differentiating between weekends and.
Right, because we rent the buildings from like 6 to 10, it's 1 use. It's never going to be more than that, unless it would be a special circumstance.
Right.
On the weekend, it would be at least 3 uses.
Right. So we're just clarifying that.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And for everybody, we're still on we're on 2B, correct? This is an agreement for.
No, this is
facilities.
policy.
This is policy 707.
Okay,
Because we didn't have the policy committee meeting, we brought policy 707 here.
got it. Okay,
But it pertains to facility use, and
yep, that's fine.
just denied instead of disapproved, really not. Stage curtains was an item that was omitted from this, this item of responsibility, but it is something that people,
I added it because some of the schools have new stage curtains, and we don't want anyone but our staff using them, because they could break, and they're expensive.
disrupt was just singular, plural. And then I think we added that when someone uses our facility, it should be returned similar, same or better condition than it was initially occupied.
Within reason.
It should be, I think that should be kind of understood, but
Mr. Tate?
it isn't always.
Thank you. Who cleans an auditorium, for example, after it's used by an outside group?
ABM.
The guys that were just here.
Perfect. Good. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm trying not to go too fast.
There's not a bunch in here. The applicant must specify the requested building and the portion of the school facility requested for use. So not that I just want to use Goodnow Elementary School for my event. You want to use Goodnow Elementary School and what part of Goodnow Elementary School, and how many people will be spectating versus participating, so we understand just how many people will be in an event.
So that we can help determine how many cleaning people we need,
Right.
because people were filling in the application and saying, okay, there are X number of people participating, and they never included spectators. So it got confusing, and this will clarify a little bit better.
Provided with the, we don't have this actually attached to the application, so we're just saying provided with the application. The certificate of insurance is never attached, it's a separate document.
I often wait until the use is approved, and then I'll ask for insurance. Why should they spend the money if I'm not going to approve the use?
And then if there's additional fees, we added number 4. If there are additional fees after the initial 10 days, those additional fees are due within 10 days after the original due date. We had the language without express permission of the superintendent or designee. Pretty standard. So, yeah, so number 5, individual community group uses the building in excess of 5 times during any calendar year for the same purpose would basically eliminate
Everybody.
almost everybody that uses our facility, so it really doesn't make sense.
What was the intent of number 5? Clearly, the number of days is the problem, but
So I think that came about when they originally had the first turf field.
yeah.
They were trying to not allow someone to dominate it, or they had groups that were meeting in one. Basically, there were conflicts between community groups because someone was always using the auditorium at South, so it wasn't available when someone else wanted it. So they had put that in it. This is going back straight enough. You remember when we discussed this when we were doing policies. That was one of the primary reasons why I wanted to take that out of it, because like Doug just said, that would, if it was still in there, Cruza and Patriot couldn't use the turf field.
Right.
So.
So now it's just a matter of scheduling. We've got to achieve.
Now we blame
Yeah,
all
we
league
did.
when that happened.
But they would apply to every basketball team, every softball team that
Right.
uses the gym, like they.
Yeah.
They use it 5 times a week.
Right. Okay, keep going. Talk about the 10 PM for the lighting, all outside facilities except for the use of the illuminated courts or athletic field shall end at dusk. We just said stadium, but we also have athletic some fields now. Okay. This, I think, was omitted after we modified it the last time. It was language that used to be in the document that we accidentally omitted when we modified it the last time. We just want to reinsert it. If obviously if any of these prohibited activities are taking place, we're going to engage the police.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. So really, there's not a lot, but we can't make those changes without bringing it to you, so.
Comments, concerns?
As a policy chair, unless somebody in this room cares, I don't see this being anything but consent agenda under policy.
Agreed.
You didn't make any changes. It was reviewed, I think, under Mr. Tate's watch a couple of years ago. You didn't make any significant changes.
Okay. Thank you. Energy, now back to the agenda. The energy, again, we're still watching the numbers, and we do believe that it's primarily attributable to the energy being used for the COVID mitigation measures. We have a couple schools that we really want to take a look at. We mentioned this last month, and we actually have engaged Aramark to start looking at South. South, the current baseline is well above what the original baseline was as far as energy use index. We're very high at South. And Holland Elementary School is very high. You can see the Energy Star rating. I mean, a good schools in the 80s, we're down here at 17 and 50 for these two schools. So while all the schools are suffering from a more inefficient operation of our systems, there's a couple that still are outliers that need to be addressed.
Do you know why those are outliers?
So we've engaged Aramark with the new dashboard that we're starting to track these buildings more closely, and they're going to actually come in and take a look at the facilities, at the HVAC equipment, at the pumps, at the controls, take a good look at what's happening with the building management system, so we can try to determine where those issues are and focus on what we need to address.
Because the suspicion is we've seen emails, we've heard complaints from community members about leaving windows open, that sort of thing.
That definitely affects
Got to
it.
do it.
Yeah.
And if we need a policy that says don't do that in January, we will provide one for you, so.
We'll discuss that.
So we did have a kickoff meeting with Aramark to look at the dashboard for the district that they've got started for us and provided access for us, a group of us, and on that would be Holland Elementary.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Paul.
Pauline, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Have a good
I'll
night.
talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
That is it with energy right now. As we engage Aramark, we'll be back with more detailed information.
A quick question. On some of the new buildings that are either being renovated or recently been renovated, do we have sensors to let us know with a building management system whether the window or the door is open or closed, so you can look? I mean,
there'd be no way to know that they're open or closed.
Well, if you have a sensor, you can. There are building management systems that do that. I'm
Yeah.
asking if we have it.
We don't have the windows as tied into the building management system.
Can you even open the windows in some of the new buildings?
I'm sorry?
Can you open the windows in all the buildings, or there are some buildings that you cannot open?
You can open the windows in almost every building. Some we actually have designed with the new buildings to open at least one in every room, at least 90 to 180 degrees, so that we can use it for egress in the event of, a violent intruder or something like that. If we need to get out of a window. Obviously, we can break windows, and we understand that, but this makes it a little easier to open the window, pop the screen, and get out. But no, because, if you're in the summer and an HVAC system does fail, and you do need some ventilation, at least you can open some windows and get some fresh air in. But ideally, we keep the windows closed because our systems are balanced and they will function and provide, the heating and cooling we need without introducing outside air. It generally leads to more problems than not, because we open it up and we bring the humidity in.
Yeah. From a facility standpoint, have you sent a letter to the principals of some of these different schools to then pass on to the teachers, advising them that we have upgraded our air and our mechanical system to introduce fresh air, negating really the need for them to open windows and how much it costs from an energy standpoint?
We haven't gone there yet because we're still kind of in the middle of this, concern for COVID and people that are uncomfortable with, within certain spaces and wanting to get some additional air. And some documents will tell you to introduce as much fresh air as possible, so they're opening windows. Obviously on bitterly cold days, it's not a good idea. I don't know how many windows are being opened on a day like today, hopefully none. But, I think as this starts to wind down, I think we do need to revisit that and talk about, we have an energy policy in place that talks about where the temperature ranges need to be, when it's warm, when it's cool, when it's occupied, when it's unoccupied. And eventually we'll get back to the unoccupied mode where we can start decreasing temperatures at night and not worry about flushing the buildings and keeping things as ventilated as we are. I mean, with the addition of the needle point bipolar units, it really takes away the need for as much outside air because they're.
That's my point.
Right.
It also negates those ionization. I mean, you're ionizing new air on. I mean,
right.
It's a self-contained system for a reason.
So as we engage Aramark, we start to look at some of these buildings, we'll start getting back out to the community and to the staff internally and talk about what we need to do to get back on track.
Because it should make them feel more comfortable. It should alleviate concerns from both the staff as well as families of children that are.
It should. The space that you're in is there's mitigation measures in place, but it doesn't stop if people are bringing it in from other places. It doesn't stop it, from being shared. But it does make the space safer, for a space to be in. I'd rather be in that space than any, honestly.
Okay. What do you need any direction for that from us?
No, we're good with that.
Okay.
So facility improvement update, just real quick on Hillcrest Elementary School. We talked about the PICO impacts to the construction. We are back on track with the mechanical room. In fact, they put some plastic around the sides to 10 inch so they could build the walls and keep on moving. So we remain on schedule for the July completion. We're working on procuring technology, the smart boards, some wireless access points, and switches, and the furniture needed for these buildings. So we're doing well at Hillcrest. The steel at the front entry is being fabricated. That's the one piece of steel that didn't complete on time. But big picture, it's not an area that's going to be a challenge to pick up in the spring and wrap up. It's not full of mechanical equipment and things that you need to serve the rest of the building. So they are fabricating that, and when it is ready, we do have foundations in. We have structural steel in place that we're building on top of, so we're in good shape. We are essentially weather tight in the building. They are re-roofing sections at a time, so we keep the building dry while they do that. Otherwise, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing supports are in place. We're complete. We're ahead of schedule with interior framing and in-wall MEPs, like all the rough-ins for electric and for data, for HVAC. So we're about 80% complete. It's not due till 17th of February. And everything else just continues to move along there. So Limestone is also in good shape. The brick veneer is going up on that building. On the addition, we have temporary heat in the building. We're actually working on drywall inside the building now, finishing drywall in the addition. So phase 1B and 1C remain on schedule for the August completion. That is the lower level of the two-story section of the building, which has been totally renovated, and the two-story classroom addition, which is 13 classrooms. And we're doing the same, procuring technology and planning for the furniture for that building. Some site work continues, some of the basin work, some of the storm drainage when it can, and otherwise the rest of the site work will hold off till the spring. And we're building the new partitions and starting to frame out the inside, so it's moving along. The HVAC equipment, 1 air handler and 15 unit ventilators and a chiller are expected around the 15th of February. We're certainly hoping that that's the date they come in, like everything else. We're challenged by delivery dates, so we're going to watch that, but quite honestly, if we didn't have them until May, we'd still be okay. So we have a little bit of flow time on that. And then we're closing out some of our facility improvement projects. The STAR Center is being closed out. We're working on the closeout documents and processing any change orders that have to be wrapped up. These will all be for STAR credit change orders. At the end, we have the remaining material allowances that went unused. We know for JVM Mechanical, there's about $17,000 for plumbing, about $28,000. And then the Turf project, we largely didn't need to use the material allowances for that. We didn't have any unforeseen soils conditions or any rock or anything like that. So the totality between these jobs, that's about $125,000, but there's far more in low bar and a little bit in borough. So we'll see some significant monies coming back into the funds that we didn't use on these projects.
What's the turnaround time on getting that back done?
Maybe about a month.
So that quick?
Yeah. Yep. Capital improvement projects, we are wrapping all those summer projects up, and again, we're going to see some credits coming back from those as well, from unused allowances on those projects. You can see we have $5,000, $11,000. The installation of the HVAC at North doesn't happen until this summer because the equipment delivery was late. We couldn't meet the timeline last year, so they had to defer it to this coming summer. There's no cost involved in that other than we couldn't do the work when we wanted to. The signal work that was done, the 15-mile-an-hour flashers throughout the district, all of that work, we didn't use the allowances for it. Rain guard work's complete. The terrazzo is another project where we have a section of hallway. That's happening this coming summer versus last because they couldn't get the resin materials they needed to do the terrazzo. They were being rationed on resin at the terrazzo installer. And we're working on getting the indoor air quality costs resolved. As you know, we had some issues where we were losing some control panels we were tying in as we were instructed to do. There's been discussions with the equipment supplier, with the contractor, and with our engineers, and I'll come back to you with that. I think we're all going to share the costs on that, but it's not going to be a big hit on us like it could have been. So we came to some agreements on that. And the Bipolar Project, it will be completed by the end of this month. We had hoped this week, but the team that was doing the work got sick, so they weren't here. So pushed the work back about a week, but by the end of this month, we'll be totally wrapped up with the functioning systems. Good news, 80%. South is about 50%. The installations are all in at South. They just had to go back and redo some rewiring. We had the pre-bid meetings, the mandatory pre-bid meetings for this coming summer's projects. So These are the list of projects, but we had no less than 6 contractors for one of the pre-bid meetings and up to 18 for some of the other projects. So we have a good list of bidders that are going to be bidding on these projects. We're excited to see the numbers. And we will be receiving bids on the 3rd of February for all the summer projects. I will then, with Dewey, put together a bid recommendation, get the bid tallies, the bid summaries, get all those out to the board by no later than the 10th, so that you have them a week before the facilities meeting on the 17th. We'll review those in person at that meeting. You will have time to see them, but we'll review them in person. And then we'll adjourn and have that special board meeting where hopefully we can approve the bids to move forward with those jobs so that we can begin procuring materials as quickly as possible. The board agenda item that I have right now would be the Crusoe and Patriot agreement. If we can get the agreements back and forth between the solicitors, if not, that would go till March. And potentially the ABM, if we can get that language together for the February meeting. If not, that would have to wait till March. But it's going to come down to their attorney and our attorney and timing. So,
Doug, is that okay to push to March if we have to do the contract?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's just going to come down if they like what Rob proposes and they're willing to accept it, we can get those agreements together quick.
Okay.
I'd like to try to get it to them, but if we can't, I don't think they're going to have a hard time. It doesn't start until July 1, so. And those are the 2 meetings that I talked about. And then in March, I'll come back and we'll talk about the general update. And there was some discussion about playgrounds and potentially doing a survey of all the playgrounds in the district. Because there's been some question about how much should PTOs, PTAs be, basically paying for versus should the district be funding some of this work. And since I've been here, the plan has been that the PTOs, PTAs have come up with some nice donations and they've replaced pieces of equipment throughout the district. And it's been a nice process and we've enjoyed working together on those. However, it does, every time, a request comes in, I do think, should we be paying for this versus the PTO? My philosophy on any school project is if I took the roof off the building and turned it upside down, anything that stays in place is ours, is facilities. And certainly those playgrounds wouldn't fall out, right? So the paper clips, the desks, everything that falls out is not ours, but the building itself, the foundations, the playgrounds, I can see both sides of it, but it's a significant cost to go through and replace, a playground at a school. Very significant, times 10 elementary schools. It's pretty costly. So we can find a consultant that I can work with. We can do a survey of all the 10. We can meet with each principal. We can do a little programming with the principal and say, hey, ideally, what would we have more of? What would we have less of? What ADA components would be ideal? And then get some pricing together and put together a plan that would go into the bigger capital improvement plan as a playground section. Then we could, if somebody wants to donate something, we would know exactly what pieces of equipment they would need to donate, so we're not spinning wheels either, putting something somewhere that maybe is misplaced in an overall design.
Well, Doug, if I may, that solves one of my biggest issues with elementary schools, and it's disparity. If you want to donate a playground or a piece of equipment, pick from the plan. I mean, you can't go,
Right.
And that because we have a schedule, we're going to do this, and that solves a whole lot of that.
Yeah.
From my standpoint.
Yeah, so if the board has a desire for me to do that, I'm happy to go work with, find the right person, people, and when the weather allows, start doing that study and incorporate it into a bigger plan.
Mrs. McKee.
Thank you. I have a question. I think it's a little bit related. I know of one elementary that has more than one playground, more than one recess area. Of the 10 elementaries, Doug, could you tell me about how many have more than one?
Ooh.
I'm sorry to put you on the
I'd have
spot.
to, in my head, really look at each one. I can certainly share that with you.
And not necessary tonight, but it's kind of related to each
Yeah.
school kind of has a different.
Yeah, I mean, I have images of all the sites. I can show you where, easily where the playgrounds live on each site. But I think ideally we have someone come in that focuses on the playground work. They're not easy to find, believe it or not. I know of a guy I used to work with at an architectural firm about 30 years ago that was the best. And he was just retired. And he would come to any playground and he would tell you what ADA issues you need to address, what design, what clearance.
Sort of age-appropriate equipment.
Yeah, everything. He was the best, but he just hung on.
Thank you.
Mr. Tate?
Yeah, but if he retired, he might want a little project on the side.
He might.
I think it's a great idea, and that grew out of the phone conversation that you and Mr. Roosevelt and I had.
Yeah.
And I think it was Mike who pushed the idea of reviewing the playground, so I think it's a marvelous idea.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing I was going to mention. It's not a formal meeting, so it's not on that list, but you're doing a brief, an update for the community at South Finestone on February 4th, right?
No.
No. February 4th is the PT.
That's March.
It's March 4th.
March 4th.
And it's the PT.
I know it's a PTO, but I meant the community.
No.
In May, we're going to do one for the community.
Good. So March PTO and
March
then May.
PTO and then in May, community.
Great.
And we'll-
So they said probably May. There's nothing is fixed. I don't know what Mr. Harden
Yeah,
wants.
right. Yeah.
We haven't formally set a date.
Exactly, Mr. Harden.
Yeah.
But we'll,
Mr. Hidalgo, you had a question at some point.
Sure, so just a suggestion or a comment regarding, I'm glad you're going to look at all the schools and look at, I think we could expand that type of analysis to other things. But as far as the elementary, maybe there's a base rate that the school district would support, maybe based on capacity or student numbers, but still allow for the PTO to do the extras that they want, regardless of, because you'll never get parity, you'll never get it. You just won't. It's not natural, in my opinion. So you gotta basically allow for, maybe we'll come up with a base rate, but, and then whatever that is, understanding that maybe PTOs are gonna want some bells and whistles.
Sure.
Only question I've got to clarify, I know this isn't a next month item, so I don't want to get too much into this, but can you provide us with some sort of a ballpark on what this consultant is going to charge the district for this evaluation?
sure, that's the reason it's next month. I'm
Yeah.
trying to find the right people and identify what the cost will be in the scope, so.
And then on our new schools or currently renovating schools, did we build in the cost for a playground with that construction, or are we still leaving it off the table based upon previous?
No, so for Hillcrest, because of where the addition went and we took the playground away and turned it into a parking area, so some of that equipment stays, some of it had to be removed, some of it is relocated elsewhere, and some of it's expanded on the same site. So we're absolutely doing some new playground equipment as part of the Hillcrest project, and some minimal playground equipment at South Finestone, but not as much.
Okay. I think we got Mrs. Marcel has a question. Kristen, can you hear us?
I can. It's really just a comment. I just wanted to thank Doug for having this discussion about the playground, and just giving his thoughts to where this could go, because, I know that the Wrightstown PTO was reaching out with questions, and we've had other PTOs that have just done a lot of very generous things for our schools. And I just think that it's a good discussion for us as a board to have, and I just appreciate Doug's time on it. So I just wanted to thank him for that.
And thank you, Kristen, because you did reach out and raise the question. So thanks for doing so.
Anything else, Doug?
That's it for me.
Any other questions, comments from the board? No public, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, good meeting.
Thank you.